My parents decided to sell what they thought was my car to fund my sister's self-care vacation and buy her a few expensive gifts because she just got divorced. I'm 26 and drove to my parents' house in my boyfriend Patricia's new SUV. It's a great car and I wanted to take it for a long drive. Patricia, who's 28, saved up for a long time to buy it and has had it for almost 2 months. We've been together for 2 years and he moved in with me last month. My parents live far from me, about a 6-hour drive, so we usually only see each other once or twice a month. They invited me to stay for a few days because my dad's heart was acting up again. I took the new car after talking to Patricia about it since my old car was in the shop. I didn't tell my parents it was Patricia's car because I didn't think it mattered. When they asked whose car it was, I just said it was mine, not realizing the consequences. On the 4th day of my visit, I returned from meeting a friend to find the car missing. I panicked, thinking it was stolen, but my parents told me they had sold it. I was shocked. They explained that they took photos of the car, sent them to some friends, and found a buyer willing to pay a lot for it. I couldn't believe they sold it without having the title transferred. When I asked what they did with the money, they said they gave it to my sister so she could take a break and bought her some jewellery. They asked me not to be mad, saying I was doing well since I bought the car, and my sister needed the help after her divorce. They didn't want to use their own money because they needed to save for retirement. I was furious and started yelling at them, telling them they messed up big time because the car wasn't even mine. It belonged to Patricia. They had met Patricia a few times but weren't close, so they were shocked when they found out. Instead of apologizing, they blamed me for not telling them the truth. They said they planned to sell the car without my knowledge and convince me not to press charges, but now they were scared because the car wasn't mine. They wanted me to talk to Patricia and convince him not to press charges. They tried to manipulate me, saying they believed I wouldn't hurt them because we're family. I told them to contact the buyer and get the car back, but they said they had already sold it and given the money to my sister, so it wasn't possible. The only reason I negotiated with them wasn't to protect them. It was because I wanted the car back. I knew how hard Patricia had worked for it, and my parents defending their decision to sell it for my sister's sake was really pissing me off. I told them that if they didn't do what I asked, I'd tell Patricia and make sure he pressed charges. This led to a standoff because they thought I was being cruel. They argued that my sister had been through a lot and deserved the vacation and gifts they'd already promised her. They said she was really happy when they gave her the money and couldn't take that joy away by cancelling everything. I told them I didn't care about her happiness, I just needed the money or the car back. They insisted I wouldn't hurt them, so I pulled out my phone right there, called Patricia, and explained the situation. My parents looked horrified as I told Patricia to press charges. He was upset and said he'd speak to his lawyer. After the call, my parents started screaming at me and pushed me out of the house, saying I was a horrible person and didn't deserve to be called their daughter anymore. They blamed me for everything, saying that none of this would have happened if I had just told them the car wasn't mine. They accused me of being insecure about not having a new car and trying to show off. It was offensive, and when I tried to explain that I wouldn't have brought the car if I'd known their intentions, they insisted they sold it because they thought I was the family and would understand. They accused me of faking my lifestyle to impress others. That was almost 3 days ago, and I've been staying in a hotel waiting for Patricia to arrive. We've been in touch, but I can't shake the feeling that maybe this is my fault for not telling my parents the car was Patricia's. Am I the arsehole for telling them it was mine? Edit. Many of you wanted to know more about my relationship with my family. As you've probably figured out, there's a golden child in the family, and it's not me, it's my older sister, who's 7 years older. We don't have a good relationship and haven't been in contact for a couple of years. It's not intentional. It just happened. She lives out of state and rarely visits, and when she does, I don't see my parents because we don't get along. My childhood wasn't terrible, even though my parents favoured my sister. I never felt sidelined until now. This car incident came out of nowhere. I had no idea they could do something so crazy. Trust me, they didn't treat me badly my entire life. If they had, I wouldn't have stayed in touch with them. Sure, there were little things that bothered me about our relationship, but overall they were kind and good parents. That's why I visited them every month. This recent incident came out of nowhere. I think they're getting old, and maybe that's why they thought selling the car would be acceptable, and that I'd just let it slide because I'm family. They were wrong. Even the things they said while pushing me out of the house, that they always believed I was a failure and wanted to prove them wrong, were shocking. They've always been supportive and never implied I'd be a failure. Maybe they believed it deep down, but they never showed it. This incident was completely unexpected, and I can't understand why they acted this way. I know my sister's divorce was tough, with her husband cheating and not paying alimony or a decent settlement, but that's no excuse for my parents' actions. Anyway, I hope this helps you understand why I stayed in touch with my parents and what I should do now. It's urgent, so I appreciate any quick advice. Update 1. Hey, yesterday after I posted my update, most people told me that I had absolutely no fault in this. I didn't want my parents asking questions about what Patricia had done with his car, so I told them a white lie. There was no way I could have known it would lead to all this, and I don't need to beat myself up about it. Yes, my parents might have treated me decently in the past, but after what they've done, I don't owe them anything. Patricia showed up this morning and told me the same thing. I don't need to feel regret or guilt. He's going to handle this, and all I have to do is testify against my parents. He's had his lawyers draw up papers for a lawsuit and is pressing charges. I'm going to support him on this. My parents deserve whatever's coming to them. We plan to go to my parents' house tonight to give them one last chance to fix their mistake. I doubt they'll do it, but Patricia thinks it's worth a try to avoid a court battle. If they don't comply, we'll take it to court. They might have lawyered up by now and could be preparing some lie to make themselves look good, but I know the truth. All I need is the contact number of the guy who bought the car to sort this out. Since I don't have that, we have to talk to them one last time to show them how bad it will be if they don't get the car back. The one good thing is that Patricia is here with me, so I feel less stressed. He's been very kind and compassionate because he knows this isn't my fault. If anyone's to blame, it's my parents. Update 2. A couple of things have happened. We went to my parents' house to speak to them and give them one last chance to fix the situation. As expected, they didn't take us up on the offer. When we rang the doorbell, my dad opened the door and assumed I was there to apologise. It was kind of funny. Patricia explained that we were there to talk about the situation and that he was pressing charges unless they got the car back. My dad got offended and told Patricia he had no right to speak that way on his property and asked us to leave. I stood my ground and told him we weren't going anywhere until he gave us the contact details of the person he sold the car to. We just wanted the car back. We didn't want any trouble for anyone. I even mentioned that after this whole debacle was over, I planned on leaving them alone for good. My mum then chimed in saying she didn't care about my threats because she had another daughter to count on, and she'd make sure everyone cut me off. At that point, Patricia and I realised there was no reasoning with them. We left knowing we had no choice but to follow through with our plan. Patricia contacted his lawyer and said he was ready to press charges since we'd tried to resolve it amicably first. We returned to the hotel in a bad mood, frustrated with the wasted time and the stress it was causing us. we started discussing possibly demanding settlement money from my parents, along with the car in perfect condition, especially if it had any damages. While we were talking, I got a call from my older sister. I ignored it at first, but answered after she called several times. She started lecturing me about harassing our parents, saying it was wrong because they raised me and I should be grateful. I was already upset and didn't want to talk to her, so I told her that she might think I owed them something, but I didn't see it that way. Things have always been different for her, so she wouldn't understand my perspective. I tried to hang up, but she accused me of being ungrateful for everything they'd done for me. That really pissed me off because I didn't know what she was referring to. I told her I thought our parents' actions were unethical and stupid, and they didn't deserve to be excused. She then clarified that she wasn't talking about our parents, but about herself. That caught me off guard because I couldn't recall any incident like that. She started ranting about something arbitrary from years ago, claiming that she decided to go no contact with me because of my ungrateful behaviour. In my original post, I mentioned that our lack of contact just happened naturally, so I didn't know where this was coming from. She said she believed she was responsible for me getting a high-paying job back then because we work in the same field. According to her, she got me the job because she withdrew her application after deciding to move away with her husband. She believed that since she withdrew, I got selected. I couldn't believe she thought she was responsible for my job. I mean, I'll never know for sure, but she genuinely believed that I owed her a thank you after she moved away and left the job to me. When I didn't thank her, she decided never to speak to me again until I acknowledged what she had done, which obviously never happened. So we haven't spoken for the past couple of years. I was so confused because I had no idea she had these expectations. Even if I had known, I wouldn't have thanked her because they were completely unreasonable. I told her off immediately, saying she wasn't responsible for me getting the job. I'm just as qualified as she is, and I got the job because of my hard work and perseverance, not because she withdrew her application. I told her I didn't care if she thought I was ungrateful. I just wanted her to leave me alone. I made it clear that I was going to ensure my parents returned the car in perfect condition. If she thought it was unfair, too bad. She was foolish to think she could call me, say such ridiculous things, and change my mind about the situation. I also pointed out that she'd always been treated like a princess, while I was treated like just another kid. I never resented them for it, but it was about time I acknowledged the difference. Then I hung up and blocked her, making sure we stay no contact permanently. After the call, I talked to Patricia. We're not sure if our parents put her up to this, but if they did, they only made things worse for themselves. It's been a long day, and it's almost 1 a.m. We have another long day ahead, so I'm going to try and get some rest. I needed to vent my feelings here, even though I talked to Patricia about it, just to get it all out of my system. Thanks for sticking with me until the end. It means a lot to me. I'll keep you updated on what happens next, and hopefully my parents won't put up much of a fight anymore because I'm really sick of everything and just want to return to my normal life. Update 3. Hi, it's around noon, and it seems Patricia and I might not have to go to court after all. This morning my parents showed up at the hotel trying to get us to stop whatever we were planning. When we got a call from the front desk, I wasn't sure if we should let them up, but Patricia thought we should talk since they might have changed their minds. So we let them in, and they started apologising profusely, saying they had thought things over and didn't want any trouble. They wanted to settle this out of court. They told us they'd contacted the man who bought the car and were trying to convince him to return it. Apparently he was planning a cross-country road trip, but they managed to persuade him, promising to pay him $2,000 more than he paid for the car. So we might be getting Patricia's car back after all. We're relieved because we don't have to stay here longer than necessary. My parents also tried to apologise for their behaviour, admitting they were wrong. When they tried to convince me otherwise, I told them it was unnecessary. I had made up my mind and was going to cut them off as soon as I got back home. They seemed unhappy and said they really wanted to make it up to me, but I told them my decision was final. I didn't want to speak to them because this had been a terrible experience for me. They had completely humiliated me in front of my boyfriend the day before and had been insufferable since they sold the car without my consent. I didn't want anything to do with them after this. They looked very upset while leaving, but at least this nightmare would soon be over, and Patricia and I could finally go home. A couple of weeks passed, and we got the car back. It was in the same condition we had kept it in, so thankfully my parents didn't have to pay any damages. They found out about the car just in the nick of time. If the guy had taken it on the cross-country road trip, things would have been much different. My parents drove the car down to our place and tried to speak to us again to apologise and get me to talk to them. I told them that now the car had been delivered, we had nothing more to discuss. They were really desperate, and I could tell they wanted to continue being part of my life. But Patricia and I made it clear that we didn't want them loitering around our house and made them leave by threatening to call the cops when they said they would stand around until I forgave them. It was their own behaviour that changed everything for us, and they needed to realise that. Until they did, nothing would change. That was 2 weeks ago, and recently Patricia proposed to me. We are hosting an engagement party at our place this weekend. Invitations have already been sent out, and I heard from a couple of relatives that my parents and sister are very upset they didn't receive one. They thought something as big as this would make me reconsider our situation and extend a hand of peace. I think that was a pretty unrealistic expectation. None of them had been kind to me, and Patricia and I were on the same page about not wanting them at our party. It's a really important day for us, and if they can't be nice to me, they don't deserve to be around me. Even if I thought about making things right and inviting them, the day would become entirely about our family drama and not our engagement. So we decided to steer clear of that. They shot themselves in the foot by talking about this to our relatives, who didn't have nice things to say about me. They thought I was being bratty and blowing things out of proportion. Maybe I'll just stay this way and keep my distance from them, and then they won't have to deal with my